last year or the year before, we had an entire Bollywood movie being shot in Warfish Bay. You understand? So you ask yourself, we've got all this landscape. Does the government recognize the impact that a $1 billion industry could be built in Namibia? And that is simply through the arts.
Adriano, thank you so much for coming on Africa Speaks.
Thank you so much for having me, Elizabeth.
Okay, so you're actually a trailblazer in the Namibian entertainment industry, and you have been there for quite some time. So you have seen it grow and evolve. So how do you see the entertainment industry or the African cinema actually challenging the stereotype that people have on the African continent? And like, just if you can as well share your personal experience where that actually also comes from.
That's quite a very in-depth question, especially seeing how Namibian cinema has grown, and being a theater as well as film practitioner myself. I've seen the industry grow from the likes of David Njavera, who we saw on TV during the One Fine Days, and to now being an on-scene and on TV personality, to also doing theater. I think with Namibia, the landscape of film has really metamorphosized to such an extent where it now plays within the global market. Believing that should it still reach more heights? Yes. I mean, when we look at the fact that we've got film submissions to, being eligible for an Oscar, that speaks of its magnitude. I know with Shuna and her partner, they recently also had a film that is now currently, collaborating with a few Africans. So that speaks of the growth, and obviously one would want to see it grow more. So the fact that Namibian actors have also been recognized for international awards, including myself, I think it speaks of the magnitude and the quality of films that we tend to produce. Do we want to see more films? Absolutely, yes. Do we want to play on the global market and also have more Namibian films on streaming sites? Like, for example, your Netflixes, your Showmaxes? Absolutely, yes. But not just films per se, but literally series. Because you want actors to say, I'm waking up every day, I'm going to a job, and we are shooting on scene and on set for a series that can perhaps also be a local series. So that is what we currently don't have as Namibians.
Yeah, that's very true. And like recently you shared some pictures on your, I think your high school pictures on your social media. And it hasn't changed actually.
Thank you.
It's true. So like growing up in Katutura, what was the moment or experience that actually ignited your passion for the entertainment industry?
Honestly, I think when the sun would set, there's this beautiful buzz that goes on in Katatura. If you hear the trucks, you hear the buses, you hear the meme making the fat cake, you hear, yourself having to go get water to get ready. For me, it was a fire, having to light a fire. That smell, or perhaps if you were a little bit privileged, you would have paraffin that you could quickly heat up some water because you're now getting ready to go to school. So all of these were such beautiful memories for me that created my wanting to be on film, and also the fact that we came from a time where there was no TV. So we would always go sneak into the neighbors to go watch the Oprah Winfrey show. And, if it's 8 o'clock, you had to go back home. So what allowed me from my upbringing to really get into TV and film was really that representation, because I didn't see people like myself on TV, people my skin type, people my background. So they were never prominent on TV. It would always be international people like your Oprah Winfrey's, but never local people. And therefore, I wanted to be that representation that speaks of someone that I can relate to on TV. Wow. Yeah.
Okay. And like how is now, I think your upbringing as well shaped your artistic. You're quite a creative person and very artistic. So how is your upbringing actually shaped that and your career choice as well?
Yeah. Career choices are I've been someone that doesn't want to be boxed. That's one thing for sure. So if you say I'm an actor, I'm more than just an actor. If you say I'm a banker, I'm more than just a banker. If you say I'm a dancer, I'm more than that. I believe that when you're creative, you sort of step out of the premise of being boxed. Because when you find something that allows you into your creative space, that is something that any creative would say sets the premise of what they would want to start creating, whether it be a theater piece or a film that you've watched. So for me, what has shaped me a lot during my upbringing has definitely been the different cultures, because I'm colored and I'm mixed Nyemba. So with the Nyemba background, there's been a lot of African spirituality and African history, which on the colored side, there is none been of that sort of practice. There's a bit of a history around the colored, but not the experience of what I am as a colored, who I am as a colored. So fusing these two has been such a beauty of creating artistic pieces of who I am as a being. So within the theater, within the film, within the banking industry that I navigate in the corporate space, those are elements that I bring all of who I am together.
A Nyemba and a colored.
Yes.
That's quite very
Colored
interesting.
Nyemba.
Colored Nyemba. That's quite very interesting.
So if you would speak to me in Nyemba, I would respond. So
Really?
I speak Ngapi, Mwachiri. Yeah,
wow,
that's me.
one will not even, I won't even think of it. Okay, so what was your first major break, and can you share your memorable moment from that experience that had a significant impact on you?
I would definitely say my very first feature film. When you say break, there are a lot of breaks personally, and there are breaks where an industry sees you. So it would definitely be the film Salute. So this was my very big film, and being part of this 2017 production with Philippe Talavera just shaped me in so many different ways, because when I read the script, I could navigate into wanting to do this, because the script was so powerful. It was powerful in the sense because it was written by inmates themselves. It was workshopped by the Oyo Trust, and then boom, here I am shooting in prison with a few inmates who were some extras. So that made it so beautiful. And I think the beauty of why I say that was a big break, a lot of people could relate to the story. A lot of people could say, but we know what it means to be a gang, be part of a gang. People could relate to what it means to desert someone who has been in prison, someone who has gone through what someone has gone through during prison, or someone knows someone that has been incarcerated because of petty issues. I think the story of Salute is so deeply bedded within our normal daily societies of a reality that we don't want to talk about, because it speaks about how do we accept someone back into society who has sort of renewed their life coming from prison. So yeah.
That's quite interesting, because like that movie Salute, I did watch it, I think maybe twice or three times. And it's a movie that really, especially like it's a reflection of especially the Katutura there, like the whole, like we all can actually like relate to that, and I think most people as well do. Yeah. So like, okay, what, like you played like quite some roles, like quite major roles in various productions, So which role has been the most challenging for you, and why?
Every role is challenging, trust me. But we recently, there were two actually from two productions. We shot a film called Sacred Places. It's currently on Amazon Prime. This was with Lloyd Winini. So we built a tunnel at the University of UNAM. University. UNAM.
University of Namibia.
Yeah. So we built a tunnel in just before COVID. And we were shooting, because we had to shoot within a day's time. And we pushed shooting, and I think we finished around about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And that same day, I had to be back at the office in my corporate job. So one, that was very challenging. But also the second one for me was doing Kapana. Kapana has been the most challenging in the sense that I feel a lot of people expect that when you're queer, that it's easy to play a queer role. Where I feel it's not, especially on the premise of playing this role of George. Because George was very challenging. He was HIV positive, he was a colored, and I had to portray this in such an authentic way. We were shooting underwater during Kapana. We were shooting on set at the Kapana stand itself. So those were such challenging moments of shooting, but also making it look very authentic. And playing that role for me was challenging in so many different ways, but also, because I was acting with someone who has never acted before, like Simeon. That was his first acting role. So we could really teach each other a lot. So he allowed me to get back into why I started it, and I could also share with him why I've done acting.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's actually, Kapana, I think Kapana was one of the very best movie that I've enjoyed. And I don't know, I think I went to two of the screenings, the screenings that I attended that we actually hosted in Windhoek.
Right.
So yeah, that's actually like that's very nice. So yeah, and then the other question that I actually have for you is like, you know, you are also an MC, like you wear so many hats.
Thank you.
So, so you have hosted like prominent events like the MTC Namibian Music Awards, the annual music awards, and also the Miss Namibia Beauty Pageant. So how does hosting compare to your acting career, and also what do you enjoy most about being an MC and a media personality?
I would tell kids first go study. Study very hard before you do any of this.
Okay.
So I think the beauty of it is there's so much beauty of what I do is the fact that a lot of people always tend to want to see the glitz and the glamour. They see the red carpets, they see the beauty of the events and you dressing up. But there's so much hard work and tenacity that comes with it. Because what I also always say is the beauty of all of what I do is that I've not lost myself. A lot of people tend to lose themselves within those spaces. And that for me is what has fulfilled me, that I get to know a different side of Adriano and Adriano the brand through all of the spaces. Acting versus emceeing is basically the same thing. It's my voice that I use on stage. Like you said, I've done Miss Namibia and I've done it twice during COVID and after COVID, where I had a chance to host it with Michelle McLean. And that for me was it was such a wow moment. Wow in the sense that, you know, I'm hosting this, and for all these years of your life, you've been told that Miss Universe 1992 was Michelle McLean, and boom, here you are, you're hosting Miss Namibia with Michelle McLean. So that for me was also like a big moment. Yeah.
Okay. So, you know, I as well do presenting and hosting, but it's not something that I studied professionally as well. Just something, a space where I found myself in. And you being in a space for over a decade.
Right.
So what would you say are some of the most important skills that you think are essential for a successful television presenter or a host?
Definitely go for master classes. You know, if it's not online, I've done a few online master classes. I've invested in my acting career by doing, you know, a lot of method acting. I read scripts. I found a mentor like the late David Njavera. Myself and Lisa Alice, we always go through scripts together or look at how we could fuel each other within the artistic space. So it's very important to, if you've got a craft and you want to, like you said, you do emceeing, how is it that you get better at it? Because it's not just about getting a mic and going onto stage, but it's about understanding the business of what you do. So as an MC, I, for example, take my business and my craft so serious. I don't go to an event and go eat with my clients because I was not catered in the event. You understand? I'm the MC. I'm the master of ceremony. I get to do what I need to do and I leave because the rest is now up to the DJ to carry the premise of that event further. So those are things that a lot of people always tend to get it wrong when you do emceeing. As an MC, you show up on time, you show up an hour, you ask your client, listen, can we have a dry run? Can we have mic check? Can we have a rehearsal with the sound guy, with the tech team, so that when the event happens, that it's just a smooth transition. Yeah. So that's just a minor.
Yeah.
It's not a master class.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say, like out of like the maybe top 3 skills that one should really have for you to be successful at that craft.
Yeah, it's a skill. You know, I think one skill is to use your vocal ability to the best of its maximum. Secondly, to always be professional. I think being professional is also a skill. You know, it could be a thing of, sorry, I'm running late. It could be a communication form of saying, hey, listen, what do you think I should wear? So that type of communication should always be there, and to always have fun. I think when you MC, it's about stepping onto stage. You need to have fun. If you feel like, oh, I'm being forced to be here, I'm being forced to do something, it shows that you're not having fun. And the question would then ultimately be, then what is the why as to why you do it?
What you're doing.
Why
you are doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Okay, that's quite interesting. So, like, okay, you are a full-time banker as well.
Yeah.
And like how have there been like, including being a full-time thing, like that sounds really challenging, and as well you being on television every time as well.
Yeah.
So like how do you manage this, and has there been a point where you felt like one role took precedent over the other as well over the years?
I think because I'm still within the Namibian land space, it's not every day that you have an MC gig. It's not every day that there's an acting role. So that's also what we need to be honest about.
Yeah.
The reality of where we are in Namibia is not that there's a production every day. And unless we get there, I think I would then say goodbye to my 8 to 5. But for now, in 8 to 5, like my being in banking and in the corporate space, it's taught me a lot about professionalism, showing up on time, being professional. And I treat my 8 to 5 the same way I would treat, for example, being in the media space, professional, showing up on time, showing up well presented, knowing that, who I deal with within the media space is also a client.
Yeah.
So those are, elements that I could sort of take into both. So many times in the corporate space, clients would always say, but I just saw you on TV or I saw you in a movie. But it's how I react towards my clients that also need to allow them, but what setting is this? What space is this? So that they can know that also, Adriano, that's what Adriano does within the media. And where we're at now is a professional setting. Yeah.
Like, would you say there was a point where you had to make like a tough choice between your full-time job and as well your entertainment career, and how did you like handle it?
Definitely during the shooting of Salute.
Okay.
Yeah, so that for me was having to take leave, because when you shoot for a film, and especially a big production like that, you're literally on set for about 10 days. So now you're like, okay, cool, but am I able to be granted leave? And thank you so much to a corporation that I work for that's quite lenient and understand what I do. So I could then put in leave and say, but listen, I'll be on leave and I'll be shooting. So my phone was on silent. I wasn't being bugged either by my clients or my bosses.
Yeah.
They could understand. So it's really about being honest. It's about being real towards your people to say, but I'm allowing you into my space so that you understand what I do. I mean, I've hosted in Burkina Faso the Sotigi Awards as well. So it's time that I take off from work in order to go represent my country. So it could also be a choice of saying, I want to say goodbye to my corporate job, but realizing, but this is my bread and butter. You understand?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. And now let's go to the industry inside as well, and some challenges. So like what systemic barriers have you faced in the African entertainment industry, and what changes do you think are essential for its growth?
There's quite a lot of challenges. I think, I don't want to always jump onto the same bandwagon that everybody jumps on, where it's always about money and money. Yes, money is a big problem. And I think everybody wants more money, whether it's in the arts, in the entertainment, money is always a factor. But I feel the biggest factor within the Namibian space and for all creators, and especially because I've now moved into gradually also being influential with the influential work I do on social media, I've realized the biggest challenge is how do people, leverage on their money and their art in a longer term. And when I say longer term, it's in terms of revenue that we could say, but you're getting royalties for this show.
Yeah.
You're getting royalties for what art and form of art you put out there. Because in Namibia, we don't have systems that could sort of meet these royalties. Yes, we've got NASCAM, and NASCAM is for the musicians. But how lucrative is NASCAM? Yes, you've got, for example, CREN. CREN regulates, for example, radios and the media, the information that gets out there. But what about creatives?
Yeah.
What about someone that wakes up and they're a makeup artist? What about someone who is for example, the director of photography?
Yeah.
What about, someone that starts baking and sees that as a craft? So we don't have systematic spaces and systems in place. Even a film production, you can't say I'm on a film production and Adriano has passed on, but his family is at least getting royalties based on every Namibian or internationally people watching his productions. So those are type of measurements and systems we need to start bringing into place. If I pass on now, I can't say that my child or my family is going to reap off the benefits of a production I've worked on.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the late Devon Javera, his family can't reap off saying, but our dad was a prominent actor in Namibia, and the systems in Namibia are in place for people watching or having seen his film theaters or his music or any production he's been part of. Royalties are systematically going to his family either through a trust and so that's what you don't have.
Yeah, that's very true. Do you think we still have a long way to go to actually be able to, as a country, especially in Namibia, or like, do you think we're actually moving in that direction? And like, who has to stand? Like, whose responsibility is it? Is it us, the people, or is it like the government?
I know there's been a table in Parliament where they're saying that they want content for Namibians, at least an 80-20, which I know when I was doing radio, we would always have to play at least 80% of local music versus 20% international music. You look at Metro FM in South Africa, that already is prominent. They don't play local music unless it's 80% of local content on the radio, 20% international, and then international being outside of Africa.
Yeah.
So that's what they would regard as. And I think within the Namibian space, we need to start getting there, to start saying, but there's a lady in the north, a guy in the south. What about their art? Do they have the spaces, the platforms to have their arts viewed on? And maybe, how is it that, the tabling of Parliament can really say, but we need to start doing this in order to recognize the revenue that arts is going to bring into Namibia. Let's, for example, say, look at our landscapes. How many times don't Americans come here and they shoot films here? Look at the Pink Lake. You look at our dunes. The big productions that you could say that have been shot in Namibia. For example, The Mummy has been shot here. Blade Runner. There are so many productions. Last year or the year before, we had an entire Bollywood movie being shot in Warfish Bay. You understand? So you ask yourself, we've got all this landscape. Does the government recognize the impact that $1 billion industry could be built in Namibia? And that is simply through the arts. And we need to start recognizing that as artists, we sell ourselves way too short. And that is, like, for example, when it comes to MC gigs or the type of art we put out there, I, for one, don't do that. And that's why perhaps, many as people are saying that it's difficult to work with me. It's not difficult. I just have a very strict boundary. That boundary comes with, let's be professional. Let's show up on time. Let's kill this notion of hurry up and wait. So those are premises that I set on. And that, for me, it just speaks of how I take my craft very professional.
Wow. Yeah. And I think that's where we are failing as creatives, like just being very professional. And I think we have that tendency of doing things, saying, no, we are doing it the African way, especially when it comes to time, the African time and all that, and not really us presenting ourselves in a manner that we want to be respected and all that.
And it's not just African time. It literally comes to, okay, let's quote. Let's do, for example, a simple quote. So now you're like, okay, cool, Adriano, please MC this gig for me. So the gig, I, for example, might be staying in Katatura. The MC gig is at Country Club. So now I need to get from Katatura to Country Club. So I must say, okay, for my safety, I'm going to charge my client maybe with Yango $250. Then I'm going to say, what suit am I wearing to this? Is my hair cut? So now Adriano maybe says, no, for this is asking X amount. Now you come and you're like, okay, no, this is actually like a good opportunity, and you lower your fee. So we're setting the premise for arts to just be a hurry up and wait or a quick fix. So we don't set a standardized pricing. And that's what we don't have. I mean, only recently did Namibia start having their own barcode as well. So there are so many things that we still need to get into space within the Namibian entertainment, but also just within our own economy to start taking ownership of our economy.
That's very true. So I think 2 weeks back, we had Master Francis Ngela as well sitting on the chair where you are sitting. And I think he had the same complaint since he is also as well an artist, that he was called for to perform on the show. But when he gave his quote, he's like, no, we can't pay you that X amount of money. Like, who do you think you are for us to pay you that amount of money? And he refused, like, I'm not coming to perform if you're not willing to pay me that.
One thing for me, I will never badmouth a client, because sometimes you just not the artist the client needs. Sometimes a client maybe just wanted one song, or maybe the client just wanted you to MC for 1 hour, Or maybe the client wanted a, like an English purukata MC gig, and then when you deliver something that is not of standard, people don't realize that it's not about the MC. People will walk away and say, but this event was horrible based on the client. So they will not go like, no, it was a horrible MC. They will say, this entire event was horrible because you had a horrible MC, for example, based on who these people employed to be the face of this event.
Yeah, that's very true. So, like, how do you think storytelling in film can change perceptions and also drive social change?
Very much so. I recently finished a production with Philippe Talavera, and this is based on Lucas. I believe within the films I've done, I've tried to, be an activist as much. I might not be toying in the streets all the time, but the art that I do really speaks for itself. I look at the film Lucas, and I have a very short role, but the magnitude of this film production speaks of children on the streets. I mean, a couple of years ago, you would recognize that we had children on the streets, but the children on the streets have become younger and younger and younger. And that for me speaks of a country like 3 million. Why are the children, why in fact are there any children on the street? A couple of years ago, there were only adults begging. But what has happened to our society that we now have children on the street? That speaks of what are we doing within the Ministry of Gender? What are we doing within welfare? What are we doing with social issues? And maybe as a society, in turn, question ourselves. When we hear a man and a husband and family arguing, do we intervene to say, but what am I helping my neighbor with? Or am I just being someone that turns a blind eye to it? Because children on the streets, for me, is a no-go. Because a child needs a proper house, needs proper sanitation, needs a house, needs a warm bed. And that is unacceptable that a child is on the street. So the film Lucas, I was part of, and for me, if we have more films that speaks of the realities of our people, the more acceptance and the more in turn we as people can question, but what can I do as a person to make things better? The film Kapana as well. When you watch Kapana, you're like, but this guy is being taught about prep in a shack. And, everybody loves when he goes like, oh, prepa.
Very Namibian.
And I look at it and I'm like, he's being taught by his nurse sister that you can actually prevent HIV/AIDS by using PrEP. And this happens in a shack. And you're like, but how many people know about PrEP? With Salute, you're like, okay, but this guy was in prison. The fact that we've got a film like Salute speaks of the fact that in Namibian prisons, condoms are not being allowed. So the realities of this man who went into prison, HIV negative, comes out of prison, HIV positive. What does that teach you? It doesn't mean that every guy in prison is gay. No. It simply means that perhaps people in prison needs to be protected as well, because that's an entire different system that we don't know. So these are films that I've been part of simply to bring about social change in this very country.
So, and your role in Kapana has been groundbreaking for the LGBT plus community. So representation, especially in Namibia. So what drew you to this role? What really drew you to this role, and why did you feel it was important to take it on?
So okay, just a little bit of background behind Kapana. So Philippe and I, we're flying to Nigeria because of Salute in 2018. So we got nominated for Best Film Southern Africa at the Africa Magic Viewers Choice Awards. So as we're flying, we just sit and, obviously sitting next to your director, you have so many questions. That's me. Like if I'm in awe of a director like Philippe, he just does groundbreaking work. So I told him that, in the Namibian landscape, we don't have a beautiful love story, and especially within film. I've seen that in theater. I've done a lot of theater where it's happy ever after. And we came back and he got funding, and that's how the life of, Kapana began. He started doing a lot of workshops. I interviewed friends. They all interviewed friends. And then Mikiros as well as Senga then came together and they compiled all these different interviews and wrote this beautiful love story. And I feel, Kapana In Namibia, it was a very wow, because we're telling a queer narrative.
Yeah.
But internationally, people are like, but, queer stories have become so common.
Yeah.
So I think within the Namibian landscape, it was a very big wow, because now you've got a colored man in this film that falls in love with a Kapana seller.
Yeah.
So you're like, more Awambo and a colored, how
yeah.
did this thing happen? And they meet at a Kapana stand. So this love is such a beautiful love story because it has a beautiful ending. And despite its challenges, it's always the question when you watch this production, it's always, does love conquer all things? Does the challenges that comes with love, are you willing to accept a partner, even a partner living with HIV/AIDS, rather HIV, or are you willing to accept, someone who is just simply a Kapana seller,
yeah. So it actually challenged like somebody with HIV and somebody totally on a different, and because you the Kapana,
the insurance broker.
When you were in the corporate world,
Right.
and then the other was actually a Kapana seller,
Right.
totally different social
grounds.
grounds and all that.
And normally when you look at queer black stories, it's always about the violence.
Yeah.
Queer stories are always, based on one is more wealthier than the other. And within Kapana, you didn't find that. You found that even the Kapana seller was buying for for George.
Yeah.
So it was very interesting to watch, because these dynamics were not speaking of any different social grounds in terms of money and or power dynamics. It was really talking about, it's two Namibian men, they are in love, and these are normal stories. It's not a Western phenomenon. It's not something to say, you know what, we are cursing Omashenge people. No, it's people that are here and they're here to stay. It's about accepting them. And I think, moreover, the film for me made me realize, but why as a society are we so concerned about what other two people are doing in bed? Why are we so concerned? Did they kill? Did they do anybody harm? Why are we so concerned about what people do in bed?
Yeah, it's quite interesting. So what has been the reaction, especially with the public and your peers in the industry, regarding regarding your role in Kapana?
So a lot of people have been accepting. A lot of people have been loving me. There's also been a lot of questions towards my co-actor, because he's not part of the LGBTI community. So I think he received quite a few backlash. He's Avambo, of course, and it was always a thing of, but why did he play such a role? And moreover, I can't necessarily speak for himself, for him, but in terms of me, it's been challenging. It's also been challenging in the sense, like I said earlier on, a lot of people tend to think that playing a role like that is easy.
Yeah.
Because you just tap in and act. No, it's not. Because you need to step into, but what is it like with George? His entire family accepted him. So that acceptance in itself, what does that look like in modern day Namibia? What does it look like, a partner and family coming together and saying, but these two people, we know they're together and they're able to eat around the same table, which we witness in Kapana. What is it like asking for forgiveness from your partner, even after you've, violated them or certain principles of them, or maybe lied to them? So these are stories that we want, people to navigate around and say, but is it bringing about change in who I am as a person? So, yeah.
Okay. And as a Namibian, openly gay man, so what does the recent ruling by the High Court mean to you, for you personally, and the LGBT plus community in Namibia? Have you faced any backlash recently for being an outspoken advocate?
So I've really been outspoken on social media. The ruling is such a big win because, and I think a lot of people perhaps still don't understand. So when we spoke of the sodomy law, the sodomy law basically says that two people together of same sex basically means that they're sodomizing each other and that is illegal. So what we fought for is to say, but we are decriminalizing this law because so many of the principles of our constitution is based on Christian principles. And when I say Christian principles, it's also based a lot on the Bible. So I'm not saying no to Christianity, because I'm a Christian and I'm a believer and I'm a child of God. And we are not a Christian state. I think people need to understand that. We are not a Christian state. We are a secular state.
Yeah.
So a secular state in itself means that if you believe in the holy fire, if there are Muslims here, if there are Christians here, the secular state accepts every Namibian, and every Namibian has the right to. But now, this secular state, where everybody is like, no, but we're actually a Christian state, now says, but some people are more important than others. And some people's rights can be violated and some not. So that's why the sodomy law, having been decriminalized, I think it's such a major win for the LGBTI community. Does it mean we are legal in our country? It doesn't mean it, because we still need to fight on so many premises. Yes, it does mean it's being decriminalized. So there's still so much that we need to win to and to win towards to, because like I said, even on my social media platforms, that despite this sodomy law being decriminalized, there will be a lot of backlash, and we need to be prepared for that. And we need to have more allies that say, but why are you concerned about what other people are doing in bed? Let them be. That's it.
Yeah, that's it. So, like, how do you think now the African media can improve in terms of the LGBT plus community representation compared to the Western media?
You know, when you look at SADC, a lot of Southern African countries have decriminalized, the sodomy rule. And they basically saying that it's okay and acceptable. I'm not also speaking from a political stand view, but I am. Because at the end of the day, if we want foreign investment, we can. But what we need to do is also to do away with the notion to say that homosexuality is a Western phenomenon. Because it's not. You know, homosexual people in the early 80s had to fight all the prejudice that came with it. They had to fight the HIV/AIDS, where people then now believe it's, HIV/AIDS was created by gay people. It wasn't. It was created in a lab. It was created, some people say it was created by monkeys, So wherever HIV/AIDS comes from, it's not queer people that created this, So there's that belief system. There's also that belief system where everybody says, but some Western churches are bringing this to Africa and teaching Africans. We need to do away with that. When you look at the word Omashenge, for example, Omashenge is a derogatory term that also means morphe. So even if you speak of morphe, where do morphes come from? So when you look at the African spirituality and how African leaders, they had in the mountains back then queer people that were African spiritual leaders, and you would go to them and they would understand both the men and both the women. And these were what now we call Omashenge people, because these were men that had nails painted. They will make so I want people to maybe start really studying what we now know as African witch doctors, but they were actually spiritual healers. I laugh at times when people make fun of people with the stripes, with Avambo people with the stripes on their faces. And when people laugh at them, I cringe. As a Namibian, I cringe, because I ask myself, you should be celebrating that person, because that person is alive. That person is alive because an Avambo traditional healer healed them with no Western medicine. And now, in 2024, you're calling that same healer that used natural herbs that come from the soil, you're calling them a witch doctor. Because the media has construed African medicine and African culture that it's taboo, and that us practicing African culture or our tradition, that it's witchcraft. That's why Black people bleach. And you're like, but that's why Black women relax their hair. That's why people bleach their teeth. So we're losing a lot of our identity to fit into a world where we're like, but who are these people? So that for me just says we need to do a little bit of more research in terms of who we are as a people, and especially in Namibia.
Yeah, that's very true. And also just really understanding the difference between religion or Christianity with our African cultures, especially when it comes to herbalism,
Right,
and witch doctor and all those things. Because you can't really try to kind of compare and think that the other one is actually evil and the other one is more holy than the other.
Look at something that I just think it's such a beautiful celebration in the Avambo culture, which is Olofuku. You know, Olofuku for me, it's the chanting and the clapping, and you know, the whistle and everybody clapping and the women being, you know, surrounded with the beads and they put on the clay and the dresses. Olofuku is so beautiful. But what has the Western world said about Olofuku? You know, when we celebrate, you know, I look at our Namibia and I'm like, a lot of inhabitants that come from Namibia are the San people, and the San people sit around the same fire and they clap hands.
Yeah.
And they sing and they chant. Over Herero people, around the fire, they sing to their ancestors. They don't worship them, they sing to them. They acknowledge that I am better because someone else was there. And that is what we, as Africans and Namibians, we need not stem away from these narratives, because these are people that have set the premise and the people that have paved the way for us. So now in today's society, we now even say, I don't want to go to the church that clap hands anymore. Why? Why? When as children, we would even play block, block, pampirere,
exactly,
or just anasisiana, you know, little things like those. So the clapping of hands, that is just who we are as Namibians and as Africans.
Yeah, that's very true. And I think when we initially make a mistake, especially when you speak of ancestors, like everybody thinks we worship ancestors. We just acknowledge them and we respect them. It's not like worshiping the ancestors. We believe that it's the highest power.
It's almost like you just saying thank you. You know, I know, referring to Avambo culture again, just that. It doesn't mean you are worshiping them if they've departed. Or, you know, even with us, you know, we say kuku, thank you so much for what you have done and who you are. It's not worshiping it. It's really just saying thank you for having set the premise, for what you've gone through, for us to have better. Because where they are, where they've walked, it's the soil that they were there before us. And now it's for us to continue their legacy.
Okay, so let's go to your personal growth and aspirations. So, who are some of your biggest influences and mentors in your career? And can you tell us about a pivotal moment with your mentor that profoundly impacted your career?
So I found inspiration with people that I get to work with every day of life. You know, every person has an impactful story, and me being able to engage, whether it's with the security guard or someone that cleans at my office, or you know, just cleans my bin. There's so much stories that I could relate to and maybe just find as inspiration. But my mom has been the biggest cheerleader. You know, my mom has understood the test of time. She's understood and be a support in whatever I do within my craft. You know, and also the late David Njavera. I think for me, I'm yet to find a mentor like him, who in turn made me realize that whatever you do, you don't do it for the accolades. You don't do it for people to clap hands for you. You do it because you see something missing and you want to bring about change. And that for me has been my journey of what I do and why I do what I do. So that has been my journey working with David. A moment working with him was when I did the play of Franz Kafka. This was my first one-hander, and he allowed me to take off from work. And for 3 or 4 days, I was in a cage, and he locked me in the garage. And he said, every day when I come during lunch, I want you to be done with the lines. So it also allowed me, so it was literally doing method acting that allowed me to jump into this role and into this character that when I performed, I could honestly be the character. So, yeah.
So you have to go through all that, like you being locked as well in the cage. And like, does that help with mental preparation and really just, how does that, like, you know?
Yeah. So with this role, because I was in a cage and I was acting like I was a baboon. So I had to be in a cage. So I literally had to now walk like a baboon. I had to, uh, you know, be in a cage and sit like a baboon. So it's the acting of that, but also learning my lines and having to sort of, in theater, you say, I've eaten my lines. So now I've digested the lines and I become the character. So in order to become the character, you need to ask yourself, but if this is the small space we are navigating in, how will I jump up and how will I jump down? And how will I say what I need to say without it sounding like it's not me, or maybe it's just lines that I've memorized, but I'm honestly saying it innately. So that is part of what method acting is.
Yeah. And I think those are actually like the behind the scene, or what really goes on behind, like in the background, that because we just see you on the screen, but we don't know what you went through for you to actually really be able to actively be able to play that role that you are playing.
Yeah. It's part of acting.
Yeah. So you have won several prestigious awards, including Best Actor in the Theatre of the Namibian Theatre and Film Awards, as well as Best Actor Southern African at the Sotiki Awards as well. So how have these recognitions influenced your career and approach to new roles?
To approach new roles, it's definitely set the premise, but I always say this, it's that my awards are accolades. They don't define who I am. They are acknowledgement of the work I've done. It doesn't set a premise to now say, oh, because it's an international award, that I don't want to work with more local people. No, there are so many directors I want to work with. I remember I worked on Handholder with Tim Hoopschler. And for me, I was not about, yes, this film is on Showmax. Yes, I'm working with a groundbreaking director. But it was really about saying, I want to work with Tim Hoopschler. So I'm really open to working with a lot of creators. And an award, yes, does boost your confidence. It does boost you, but it also sets a premise of where in the industry, it really becomes a thing of, oh no, that's an award-winning actor. We don't want to work with him. So I want people to start moving away from those stereotypical notions that, oh, even if I'm an award-winning actor, it doesn't mean that I don't want to work with people. And I'm also not saying, yes, my value has changed. Yes, my value has changed in terms of what I would charge. Yes, but it doesn't set the premise that I don't want to work with locals. So,
Okay. So, and also, tell us about your experience winning the King Wendes Award for the outstanding performance in Canada and Best Male Actor at the Independent Film Festival in France. So, how do these international accolades impact your view in Namibian cinema globally?
So, the Kim Renders Awards, winning that from Canada was groundbreaking. I remember when my director called me, Philippe, and he's like, you just won the Kim Renders Awards. I was like, what? You don't just win the Kim Renders Awards. And for me, the Kim Renders Awards, just because of the fact that it's from Canada, but also just the premise of what it's about. It's about using film as social change. So Kim Renders, if you just read on who Kim Renders was, it's really about saying, but this award is recognizing someone who has been impactful in a film production and on a set that has spoken and really broken a lot of stereotypes. And that was for my role as George in the film Kapana. So the independent film award that I won from France was also beautiful because at least Philippe and Simon could actually attend the award ceremony. So they could receive the award and they could be present. I know with Simeon, he he had a lot of questions, that people would ask him, especially because they were there physically. And it's when you tell people no, but queer rights are still illegal in Namibia, they're like, what in 2024? And when you look at the landscapes of Namibia and the beauty, and just what a fast track country Namibia is, especially compared to different even Western countries, it would be like, but why is this law still applicable, and especially in the films? So these awards are awards that really say, but it's a right tick that we've done something right with this production, that hey, this production did have an impact, so we're going to move on to more impactful productions.
Wow. Okay. So I want us to move to the future of, just to talk about more on the future of the African cinema. So, like, how, looking ahead, what are your predictions for the next decades in the African cinema?
Sure. I really in future see more Namibian productions and not just at an academy, but I foresee Namibian productions where a lot of Africans and international people are coming to Namibia to say, but we're coming to shoot here. And not just them coming to shoot here, but they're coming to shoot here to say, but we will create more Namibian TV series. We will create more Namibian TV awards. We will, in fact, have more Namibian awards, not just, by every second year, but on a yearly basis. But in turn, I really foresee an African cinema where we can cross collaborate. When Namibian actors are able to fly to South Africa, South African actors are able to fly here and really work on productions together, whether it's in Angola and Botswana, in Nigeria, because Nigeria and Kenya actually currently has the most viewership when it comes to, for example, Netflix. And you want to see more productions on Netflix. But all in all, maybe have an African Academy, like the Oscars. But why can we as Africans not have an academy? I know the Sotigi Awards happens, the AMVCA happens, but we need the FESPACO happens, but we need an award ceremony that says, but it's as big as an Academy Award. And that award is to say we recognize every film production on the African continent.
That's very true. I can't wait for that.
Yeah, me too.
So can you just highlight any emerging filmmakers or upcoming films from the African continent that you are excited about?
Sure. I'm really excited about the groundbreaking film of Shuna and Panache that being a Namibia production. Lucas from Namibia, I want Lucas to go further because Philippe has worked so hard on this production, and especially with the children that now in turn have to play a role in the film for children, but as children they can't watch this production because it speaks of the brutality of what children are going through on the streets. I want to see more Namibian productions. For the rest I watch them all on Netflix. But I want to see more Namibian productions.
Okay. So, and what will your advice be to the aspiring actors as well as filmmakers in Africa who are trying to make their mark in the industry?
Just start. Just honestly start wherever you are, and I take that message for myself to just start. We all have scripts, we all have documents, we all have productions and thoughts in our heads of look at you with your podcast, and this show. It's all about just starting. It's about be consistent, seek for help, seek for advice, ask. No man is an island. Try to, I always say this, even if you do get funding for production, remember, read what are the clauses of your production, because it's so important to know, do you own the production? Do you own the hard work that you've put into a script or an entire production with people having funded it in order for you to send it for festivals internationally? Or is this a production that if you've signed a contract, whoever has funded it, that it solely belongs to those people who have funded your production? So read those terms and conditions and ask for help. It's so important to navigate the artistic and the creative space by asking for help. Hey, Adriano, do you have a cameraman that you know? Or do you have a director of photography? Do you know where I can borrow lights? Do you know where I can borrow a mic? Do you know who does wardrobe? Do you know who does makeup? These are things that we need to navigate together as an industry. Because when we do it together and we collaborate, it can only make Namibia bigger. Because as much as we think we've made it, so productions on an international scale, even if people would Google you, it will take long. Because they need to Google the entire search engine that's Namibia in order to realize, but actually productions are happening here. So that's where we need to get to.
That's so true. And I think we really need to get serious when it comes to collaboration and working together in the entertainment industry.
Absolutely.
So, like, what did you say are some of your unconventional goals and dream projects that you have for the future, both in banking and entertainment?
So to have my own media house, but also just to continue to do philanthropy work. I strive myself and I pride myself in doing philanthropy work. I know about a year ago, we were feeding at least 6 households. You know, for me, I cannot fathom the fact that someone goes to bed without food. It breaks my heart. So if there are people that would want to go, you know, work with me on productions or on projects where we could sort of say, but how are we able to make things different for our country and make it better? Let's collaborate. Let's look at how we can feed more Namibians. You know, people in the north are suffering of hunger. People in the south are suffering of hunger. And I feel we cannot live in a country where I go to bed in a warm bed with food, having eaten food, where someone else, you know, doesn't have a meal to eat, let alone children don't have a meal to eat. And I think as people, you know, I've got something on my website which is called philanthropy. Once you click on I'm not seeking for money. I'm seeking for people that say, let's work on projects where we can feed Namibia. Yeah.
Okay. Now I actually want to understand Adriano, the one sitting in front of me, not the one on the screen, not the one in the banking industry as well. So what will you say are some of the surprising hobbies or interests that you have that friends might not know about you?
I love being in the garden. I love planting. I love doing house chores like fixing a tap, or I own a toolbox. So yeah, so some people might think, oh, there's Adriano the actor, Adriano this fashion guy, but I love doing hard labor, like you know, like being able to fix something at home. I barely call a plumber to do basic things. I paint. That's the type of work I love doing, because it's not just therapeutic, but being able to have a craft where I'm able to either fix a tap or fix, you know, if something is broken at home or something like a kettle, or I open it. I literally open it with my screwdriver. I'm like, okay, let me see what I can do to fix this. That's what I love doing.
Wow, that's quite interesting. So, okay, just to, because you're driving to the conclusion for our interview, actually. So, what will you say is one piece of advice that you wish someone had given you when you were starting out, and what advice would you give to younger and aspiring artists who want to follow a similar career path?
Yeah. So, first and foremost, for me, my mom has, from the onset, you know, been very supportive of my dreams, my aspirations, as well as my dad. You know, my dad always wanted me to play rugby, but in turn I was, you know, doing athletics. And in turn, the athletics has allowed me to go to places like China and to, you know, just explore a different side of who I am.
Yeah.
And I think my mom pushing me more in the arts and saying, don't do this role, do that role, do this, don't do that, has really taught me a lot about not her being a momager, but a caring mom that understands what's best for me. I remember every time I'd get a script, I would come to her and I would tell her, okay, this is the film, this is what it's about, you think I should do it? And my mom has prayed with me. And I think that for me is just the beauty about what my parents have been. And even just children listening to this podcast and parents, be supportive of your child's dreams. If you want to follow my career path, it's all I need to say to you is it's not easy. It's not going to be an easy road. Where you look at where we're at in a global market and where the world is heading to, people tend to choose who they want to be recognized and who they choose to be someone famous. So I can sit here and be based on, oh, I've just clicked on this TikTok and now Elizabeth is twerking. So we can make Elizabeth go viral and make Elizabeth famous just because she was twerking. You understand?
Yeah.
So now every person that has a phone, they get to choose who they want to make famous.
Yeah.
They get to choose who they don't want to make famous. They get to choose who they want to cancel based on one thing that person has done wrong. So at the end of the day, are you strong enough? Do you have thick skin enough to enter into an industry that will ridicule you, that will be your support one day and will not be your support one day?
Yeah.
But all in all, what is your foundation as to why you started doing what you're doing? So if you follow my footsteps and you want to do this, I obviously have my own reasons as to why I do what I do. For me, it's about fulfillment and giving people a platform. Like when I do TV, when I did radio, it was recognizing that everybody has a voice, but not a lot of people have a platform. even this platform.
Yeah.
Everybody has a voice, but they perhaps might not have this platform.
Yeah.
So push for it, study, invest in your craft, invest in your education. Very, very important. Because once you've got that, no one can take it away from you.
That's very true. Thank you so much, Adriano, for actually coming on Africa Speaks. Is there anything else that maybe I have not asked you that you would like to that you will love to address before I actually let you go?
That's it from me. You know, we've spoken so much. You know, and for me, it's as Namibians, let's support each other. I think we only have us.
Yeah.
You know, we only have this industry. We only have this platform. So where we can get better, let's get better. Let's get better at saying, but let's learn and let's give each other positive criticism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's quite very true. Thank you so much. And that's actually also all from us from Africa Speaks. Thank you so much for coming on
Thank you
the
for
show.
having me.